Alright, the Slav. That's this week's Chita is talking about the Slav. So, the picture on the screen is a picture of a bird called the quail, which, for the most part, pretty much all the Mafarshim agree that the Slav is the quail. However, we're going to suggest other pirushim. So, we're going to go through the story of the Slav, or the stories of the Slav, and then a number of details, descriptions of the Slav, and then the punishment that happened through the Slav, and then the Slav according to Chassidus. Four sub-subjects. So regarding the story of the Slav, there's basically a shaylas and shittas. What we're going to do first is we're going to go through a lot of Chumash. Two places in Chumash where it talks about the Slav, and then to understand how they work together and point out the questions, and then suggest the different shittas of how to answer the questions. So the first story begins in Parshas Beshalach, where over there it says when the Yidden left Mitzrayim, they were traveling to Har Sinai, and they left from place to place. We don't know exactly every place that they were. I mean, today's Chitas talks about that every time they traveled. It could be a day, it could be 2 days, it could be a month, it could be more. But one of the times it says, Vayisumi Elim, they traveled from a place called Elim, and they came to a place called Midbar Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, and they arrived there the 15th day of the second month, which is Tesvav Iyar. This is a month after they left Mitzrayim, which is the year Tov Memches 2448, based off Memches. A month later, they left Mitzrayim. After they left Mitzrayim, they arrived in the place called Midbar Sin. When they came to this place, the Torah tells us, "Vayiloinu kol hadas b'nei Yisrael al Moshe v'Aaron b'midbar." They complained. What was their complaint? One of their many complaints that they complained. They told Hashem. They told Moshe and Aaron, b'nei Yisrael, mihitein museinu b'yad Hashem be'eretz Mitzrayim. He would have rather died in Hashem's hands in Mitzrayim. Mishifteinu al sir habosar, when we had flesh. V'achlinu lechem lasoiva, we had bread. You took us out to this desert to starve us all to death. Now, they left Mitzrayim a month ago. What happened? Esther wake up now? So the explanation is that they had the matzahs that they took out of Mitzrayim, and the matzahs lasted a month. And now, a month later, they're out of matzahs. They have no food left, and the month didn't happen yet. This is basically the request for the month. And therefore, as far as they're concerned, there's nothing what to eat. There's no way they're going to survive. So they're complaining. And they're asking, what's going to be with us? We're going to starve to death over here. And the death of starvation is a terrible type of death. Much rather go back to Mitzrayim. And even though it's hard work, at least we have what to eat. So Hashem tells Moshe, Hineni mamtir lachem lechem min hashamayim. I'm going to give you bread from the heaven. Everyone's going to go every day and collect it. And here we have some more psukim. This is a Parshas Beshalach, the dinim of the mon, that Hashem says, I'm going to test you with the rules of the mon. And then Hashem tells Moshe, on every Friday, they're going to bring home what they usually collect. And there's going to be a miracle. This is like all the details of the mon is Hashem's response to what they're asking for. And then Moshe and Aaron tell the Yidden something which we didn't see, and Hashem is speaking to Moshe and Aaron, but they tell the Yidden, Erev, tonight, in the evening, V'yidatem ki Hashem hoitzi eschem eretz Mitzrayim. You're going to see that Hashem took you out of Mitzrayim. They saw Hashem took them out of Mitzrayim a month ago. It means that tonight you're going to see that Hashem took you out of Mitzrayim, and He could, and He will provide for you, even in the midbar, even though we're out of bread. And then Pasuk Zayin continues, Uboiker, Ur-isem es k'vayid Hashem. In the morning, you're going to see Hashem's honor when He heard your complaints. So you're going to see something in the evening and something in the morning. What's the difference? So Pasuk Ches, Moshe continues with more details before Moshe and Aaron. Now Moshe himself continues and says, "B'seis Hashem lachem ba'erev basar lechel v'lechem ba'boker lizboya." That the way you're going to see Hashem, that Hashem can provide, can and will provide, and in the evening and the morning is because in the evening He's going to give you flesh to eat, and in the morning He's going to give you bread. And this is because Hashem heard your complaints, and nachnu ma, don't complain about us. So here Moshe is telling, this is on Tesvav Iyar, this is a month after that's Mitzrayim. Moshe is telling the Yidden, you're going to have flesh at night and bread in the morning. And then Moshe speaks to Aaron, tell the Yidden to come close to Hashem, and he wants everyone to see how Hashem is going to appear and provide for them. And Vayikedaber Aaron al kol hadas b'nei Yisrael vayifnu lamidbar. As Aaron talks to the Yidden, they turn to the midbar. V'hinei kvoid Hashem niraba. Hashem appears. Hashem's honor appears in the cloud, and He's coming towards them, so to speak, and He's about to deliver to them the food that they're asking for. few psukim later, Hashem tells Moshe again. It's in the Mefarshim we'll have to go through exactly what's the it seems like a bit of repetition over here. It's not so much a discussion for now. But Hashem tells Moshe again a few psukim later, Shamati yestlunes b'nei Yisrael. I heard their complaints. Tell them the following: Bein arbaim teichlu basar v'abekirtis bolachem v'yidatem k'nei Hashem elekechem. Again, Hashem says, from now on you're going to have flesh in the evening, and in the morning you're going to have the bread. And Vayhi ba'erev, on that evening, this is all on that day, that's Vav here, and that evening, Vatal haslov, Vatachas es hamachane, the slav, which we said before, Pashas is the quail bird, it covered the entire machane. And the morning, there was a layer of dew around the machane, which we know that was where the man was. As the pasuk continues, when the dew rose, something on the floor was like some interesting thing. It was thin, it was small pieces. What is this? This is food. They didn't know exactly what name to give it. And Moshe tells them, this is that bread that Hashem gave to you. And now Moshe gives them the instructions about the man that we learned before. That he tells them, this is what Hashem said, everyone has to take a certain amount, and then the Yidden listen, and then everyone had to say. So here we have a whole bunch of more information about how the man, what happened with the man. Before we move on to this week's Chumash and Balaischa, to point out that when the Yidden were complaining, they wanted flesh and they wanted bread. And Hashem said, I'm going to provide flesh in the evening and bread in the morning. And we saw in passing in one pasuk he mentioned that indeed they had slav in the evening and then they had bread in the morning, but the pasuk only elaborated and spoke barichas only about the bread, about the man. It didn't talk anything besides that one pasuk in short in passing that the slav could cover the machane. There was no more information about the slav. That was in Parshas B'Shalach. And this week in Parshas Ba'aleischa, it says now in this week, if you're following the order of when we're at this point, we're in Chumash Bamidbar already. We're already in the second year. This was last year, Tesvav Iyar, based off Memches 2448, which is before Matan Torah. Parshas Bamidbar is already almost a full year later. It's already, the Chumash Bamidbar starts with Rosh Chodesh Iyar, based off Memtes 2449, goes back to Rosh Chodesh Nisan, but we're holding already a full year later. And they were at the Midbar, they were at Har Sinai for almost an entire year. They arrived at Har Sinai Rosh Chodesh Sivan 2448, and they stayed there till the next year on Chaf Iyar 2449. And then they traveled and they finally left Har Sinai after being there for almost a complete year, and they're moving now towards Eretz Yisrael. The pasuk says, they traveled from the mountain. They took them a 3-day travel, which would be the Pashtas Chav Gimel Iyar now. The Arin, the details how the Arin travels ahead of them, and for 3 days, and they found them a place to stay. And the cloud of Hashem is upon them. And then, Parak Yudal of Pasuk Dalit, says the pasuk, "V'hasafsuf asher bekirba yisavu tavo." The asafsuf means the people that were gathered, that were collected against with the Yidden. They had a taiva. Vayashuvu vayivku gam bnei Yisrael, and they caused the Yidden to also complain together with them. Vayemru, and what was the whole complaint of the asafsuf, and which we know is the Erev Rav together with the other bnei Yisrael. Vayemru mi achilenu basar, who's going to give us flesh? Which right away a red flag comes up. 1 second, didn't they get flesh last year? Oh, it only happened once. What exactly is going on over here? Well, we're going to get to that soon, but the point is that at this point, the pasuk clearly says that the asafsuf is asking for flesh, which Pashas means they don't have any flesh. The pasuk continues with their complaint. We remember the food that we ate in Mitzrayim without any work, which was we had over there. These are the 5 vegetables that we know the man did not change to those tastes. We know that it did not turn into squash, into avatichim, which most people say is watermelon. Chatzir, some kind of leek. Onions and garlic. That's a whole discussion for itself. Why not? What?
He said they got without work.
They didn't have to work for the. Oh, you seem to have to work in Mitzrayim. So Rashi explains chinam min mitzvahs. There was no mitzvahs involved. With the man, as we saw before, there was so much of mitzvahs. So of course you're right that there was hard work in Mitzrayim, but the work wasn't for the food. The work was for the mitzvah. The food, they had no rules of what they could eat or how much they can collect. So here, that's what they were complaining about. Because whenever you have to work stammas, people don't mind. When it's a mitzvah, that's when people get annoyed.
What's the statement meant to be exactly?
Ooh, that's a heavy question.
It's
Oh, there we go. Va'ato, the pasuk continues, Nafshein, the Asaf Suf and the Erev Rav and the Yidden complaining, Nafsheinu Yevesha Ein Koil Bilti Elamani Nenu. So here we see the pasuk is clearly saying they already have the mun. They have the mun and they're complaining the mun is not good enough, it's not flesh, and it doesn't have all the flavors, so they're complaining after they have the mun.
Did it have all the other flavors and it could become non-kosher food?
That's a separate question. That the Chido was asked that question if it could have turned into not kosher food. The pasuk now, pasuk Zayin, this is all in this week's parsha, Ba'aleischa. The pasuk describes the mon. It's kizra gadhu ve'inikin abledach, repeating more what the mon is like. Shato ambeloktu v'tochnu berechaim edocha b'meducha. How the yidnu would go and search for the mon. They would collect it, they would grind it, bishlo bapara, they would cook it in their pots. V'aso say ugais, and they cooked it and they baked it. V'yatayim yikatam l'shadasham, and it had a natural oily, the Rashi says, an oily honey flavor. Uveredes atala lamachnin laila yeredam alav. Every evening, the dew would come down, and in the morning they would see the mun that was there. The pasuk is redescribing it, but now the Yidden are complaining it's not enough. So Vayishma Moshe Sa'am Beichel Mishpachaisa. Actually, Moshe hears that everyone's complaining over here. Ish LePesach Aholoi. Everyone's standing at their tents, and they're all upset because they don't have any flesh. Vayichar Af Hashem, and Hashem is all mad at the Yidden because they're complaining. Because what have to complain? You have so much good stuff. Because you don't have one thing, you have to go complaining. Hashem gets very upset, and Ube'ene Moshe, Moshe is stuck in the middle over here. Yidden are complaining. Moshe is in a bad place. He's stuck between the Yidden and Hashem. The Yidden are complaining. Hashem is mad. What's he supposed to do? So now Moshe turns to Hashem. Vayim Moshe Hashem. Lama reyesel avdecha. What do I have to suffer over here? Lama limatzasechem beinecha. You so dislike me. Lasum es masa kol ha'mazeli. You have to deal with this whole fight now. There are all these complaints. And he says, Ha'anechi hardisi es kol ha'mazeh. Am I the one that gave birth to this nation? That I carry them in my womb? Anechi lidatiyu. You're telling me I have to take care of them. Kids and Moshe is complaining. Why am I stuck over here? They're complaining. It's not for me. So he continues explaining why is he so confused now? Because they want flesh. There's no way I can give flesh to a few million people. They're complaining. Meaning they have them on. They're coming to me. I'm responsible now, and I can't. You put me in charge of a job which I can't do. Huh? So I can't handle this. You're doing this to me. Kill me instead. I can't handle this. This is too much. Hashem, take my life from me. I can't handle these complaints. They want flesh. I can't offer them flesh. Please stop. But Moshe basically seems to be like giving up on this whole job of being the leader. You learn Mitzvah over the week. You learn Chumash and Rashi with all the other Pirushim. I mean, Rashi Pirushim, not other Pirushim. Rashi Pirushim, but there's a simple reading of the words. This is the impression that Moshe is giving. And Hashem now responds to Moshe Rabbeinu. Hashem tells Moshe, no, I'm going to give them flesh. No, I'll take care of it. Go and collect 70 people and bring these people to you, and they should stand next to you. I'm going to sit and talk to you, and then go tell the Yidden that are complaining. Tell them, prepare yourselves tomorrow. Again, we said L'chodesh is about Chav Gimel Iyar. Tomorrow, and I'm going to give you flesh. And this is because you're crying and you're saying, who's going to give me flesh? I'd rather be Mitzrayim. Don't worry, I'm going to give you flesh. But not stam. Not one day, not Tuesday, and 5 days, not 10, not 20 days. I'm going to give you a full month. I'm going to stuff you with flesh. It's going to come out of your nose. We'll soon see what Zara means. That's going to be so bad for you, and this is because you're ma'astem es Hashem asher b'kirei b'chem. You're disgracing Hashem. Since you're not honoring Hashem, instead of thanking Him for what He did for you. Batifku lefon of lamer lomazeh etzonam Mitzrayim. You're complaining why out of Mitzrayim. So basically, you're complaining. Hashem says, "I'll show you. I'll provide the flesh for you." And then a few psukim later, argue with Moshe and Hashem again. And finally, pasuk Lamed Aleph, the pasuk describes V'ruach nosa me'is Hashem v'yogo salvi min hayom. A wind blew from Hashem and it brought quail in from the sea. And it was all over the place, about a day's journey in every direction. All around the entire machane. Uchamasayim up in the other. About 2 amas above the ground. So this is what ends up happening. That night, that day, and that night, and the next day, and they vayasfu saslov, and they were collecting the quail. Hamamit. Asaf asara chamorim. So the minimum amount was 10 piles of quail. They let it out. They wanted to dry it out, like some kind of, I guess, jerky or something, whatever it would be. Svivas hamachane. And they're excited. Oh, see, we complained and we got what we wanted. We ended up getting our flesh. The flesh is still between their teeth. Before they have a chance to bite down on it. Hashem's anger came upon the people. And it was a tremendous makor, and many people died. The place was called Kivrei Satava, the burial of the Taiva. Why was it called that? Because over there they buried the people that had Taivas. Here's a famous verse in the Baal Shem Tov over here. The Baal Shem Tov says that every person has a journey, has a preset journey. However, what he does in every destination is up to him. And Baal Shem Tov says when Eden went through the Midbar, they also had their journeys, and every journey, it was up to them what to do with it. And Baal Shem Tov says, Kivrei HaTaiva could have been a place where they would have buried their Taiva. They could have, if they would have utilized the opportunity, they would have got rid of their Taivas. Instead, they ended up burying the people that had Taivas. Right? That's a verse in the Baal Shem Tov. So this is a finishing of the story in this week's parasha about the Slav. So the question is, 3 questions that we ask is, why? How many times did the Slav come down? Seemingly it began before. If it began last year on Tesvav Iyar together with this Mon, was that a one-time thing? Was that all the time? Obviously, the question is, if it happened then, why are they asking again? If it don't happen once, why didn't it happen the whole time? And why is it not mentioned like the Mon? It's not the same thing. And why did the Yidden want it if they already, I think this is part of the first question, if they had it if they already had it the entire time, why did they want it again? In other words, are these 2 separate stories? Was the first time a one-time thing? Was it all the time? And also the second time, was it only for 1 month and that's it? What was going on? So there's approximately 5 shittas we're able to come up with. Rashi and the Ramban has his own, the Ramban explains Rashi, and the Ramban has his own opinion, the Barbanel, the Marsha, and then there's a sefer called Meir Ayin Ala Mechilta. Each one has slightly of a different beer. Rashi says that once the Slav started coming down, the beginning, if I'm not mistaken, this is Rashi and Gemara, not Rashi and Chumash. But Rashi says, once Tesvav Iyar, once the Yidden asked for that first time for food, a month after they left Mitzrayim and they had nothing but to eat, so from then on, just like the Mon obviously lasted for 40 years, so too the Slav lasted for 40 years. And Rashi's, the pshat would be, because why would I think there's a difference? If they were hungry for flesh and for bread, and Hashem said, I'll provide for you. So just like the Mon we see lasted for the 40 years, there was no exceptions, the assumption would be that the Slav lasted the same way as well. Why, when you're learning Parshas B'Shalach, what's the reason to think differently? Why does the pasuk not say more details? Because there were no more mitzvahs regarding the Slav. By the Mon, there were so many mitzvahs. You have a certain amount. You can't take for Shabbos. All those details. By Slav, the Slav came. You took your flesh and you went weiter. According to that, what happened in Parshas by Leischa? So Rashi says they wanted more. Rashi says, till then it was a minimal amount of slav, very small. And Mamela, they were unhappy. They wanted more flesh. We want more flesh. And that explains, according to Rashi, why Hashem got so mad at them. The first time around in Parashas B'Shalach, when they asked for it, we don't find this whole anger of Hashem. You're going to stuff you till it comes out of your nose and you're going to die in your bed. You don't see that. Yidden complained, seemingly a valid complaint. They were starving. There was nothing but the desert. Hashem said, I'll provide you flesh and bread. Everyone's happy. Very good. Maybe they spoke not so that but it wasn't this whole anger. But now, they're complaining. Why now so mad? They had a valid complaint. The Mon is not very limited. As much as it had all the taste, it wasn't the same thing like actual flesh, and therefore they had a complaint. What's all the anger? According to Rashi, it's beautiful because they had the flesh. They had quail this whole time. They shouldn't have too much. It's like a person comes to the kitchen and he sees only 1 piece of chicken. I want 3 pieces of chicken. Come on, you're talking about your zelul v'soive. Relax. So that's according to Rashi the Pshat. Rashi says, and what happened was, for this month, in this parsha, there was a big hisafa, a tremendous amount more slav than regular, and because of that, we have so much, we'll take some more, and then they ended up getting punished, as we'll see later, how they ended up dying. So according to Rashi, that's the pshat. It fits. Again, it's a little bit of the problem. Any pirush has a problem, but according to Rashi, the problem would be is that still it's a bit strange that the slav is not mentioned at all the entire time from Shalach till now, and even now there's no implication that they had flesh and they were asking for more. They're saying we would have rather been in Mitzrayim, and since we don't have any flesh now, it's a bit strange to say that they were getting it the entire time. It was just an amount. But that's Rashi's pshat. That's pshat number 1. What?
You said earlier that some of it came out of the water. Why
we'll get to that soon. It said min hayom, from the sea. We'll talk about that soon.
Hold on. If you weren't from the complainers for the slaughter, you just took more because there was, would you die?
Well, not everybody died. That's obvious because Klal Yisrael continued.
No, could be because you didn't take, but if you took, even though you didn't complain,
I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that question. It says Hamami, the one that took the least, took Asar Chamorim, 10 piles. Would that mean that if it was either a lot or nothing? Possibly. According to Rashi, maybe it means the regular people took the regular amount of the regular day, and only the people that were Bali Taivas, they took all the extras, and they're the ones that took so much more, and they died. According to Rashi, you can say that pshat. The Ramban says something similar to Rashi. The Ramban, but it's very unclear, very vague. The Ramban says that they asked for it the first time, Tesvav Iyar, and then over time it kept happening randomly once in a while. And when we'll talk soon about the Min Hayom, we'll mention this Ramban again, which will actually make a lot of sense according to science. But the Ramban says that it was random, mol ya, mol nish. So obviously, if it's random, you can complain. Just like once in a while, a bacher likes the food in yeshiva, and then he complains when they say food is not so good. Why? Because I want good food every single day. So al derech zeh, so that he were complaining. So this is like more understandable that where it came from and why it's not mentioned all the time. It is still a chiddush that it happened from time to time, but this is the Ramban's pshat that it happened from time to time. The first time Tesvav Iyar, throughout that year, it might have happened randomly here and there. Obviously, when they were complaining on Chav Gimel Iyar, they were at that point, maybe it was already a long time, maybe a few months, that there was none of the slav anymore, so they complained and Hashem gave it to them. But according to the Ramban, it seems like throughout the 40 years, it kept coming once in a while. Obviously, not in such a terrible way of a tremendous amount and causing them to die, but at least it happened from time to time. So that's the Ramban's pshat. Not every single day for 40 years, but it happened sporadically throughout those years. Then we have the Marsha. The Marsha is an interesting pshat. The Marsha says, yes, the slav came down on Tesvav Iyar. However, says the Marsha, that when the Yidden were in the Midbar, at that point it was usher for them to eat flesh. There's a machlokes in the Gemara, that brings it to the Sichos, but according to one of the opinions in the Gemara and the Tanoim, it was usher for a Yid to eat random flesh. Only flesh he can eat is only karbanos. He can't eat psar taiva, even if it's shechted. When did this Isser begin? Matan Torah. Tesvav Iyar, as we mentioned, was a month after the Mitzrayim, which is 40 days approximately before they received the Torah. So says the Marsha, I have an explanation of what happened over here. The Marsha, it's not 40 days, it'll be 20 days. 20 days before they received the Torah. Says the Marsha, for those 20 days they were allowed to eat flesh. They didn't get the Torah yet. So for those 20 days, the slav came down. And then it stopped because now Matan Torah comes, so now you can't eat random flesh. And then there was no flesh at all till the next year Chav Gimel Iyar. As a one-time basis, he didn't complain. Hashem gave him again in Tat for that month, and that was over. So according to the Marsha, there was a tkufa of 20 days from Tesvav Iyar till Hevav Sivan, and then again from Chav Gimel Iyar, I would assume till Chav Gimel Sivan, and that was it. So that's what the Marsha learns pshat. There isn't too many problems with this pshat. It could be understood, even though it's not mentioned the first time. Of course, in Pshut Shel Mikra, you don't find anywhere that it lasted for 20 days and suddenly stopped at Matan Torah. But the Marsha is not limited to the way of Limud of Pshut Shel Mikra. That's his pshat. So that's pshat number 3. Pshat number 4 is the Abarbanel. The Abarbanel says that the first time it only came for 1 day. Even though, why would you say there's a difference between the Slav and the Mon? The Abarbanel says you see in the Psukim that it came on a one-time basis. The Abarbanel says they complained that one time, they got it for 1 day. They complained they should have gotten it more. Then Abarbanel might say, I don't remember if he addresses this question, but maybe he will suggest that, listen, you guys wanted food. Now you have the mon, you have everything basically. So you asked for flesh the first time, I gave you flesh to show what I can give you, but now here's the mon, that should be enough for you, and from now on the mon should be enough, and that's what ended up happening. And then, comes a year later, Gimel Iyar, they're complaining, I talk and flesh, you give them a full month, stuff them up, and the same story like the Marsha said. So that's the Abarbanel, similar to the Marsha. Marsha says it was 20 days and then it was over. Abarbanel says 1 day and it was over, and then afterwards it ended up happening again. So Rashi and the Ramban are similar in the sense that Rashi and Ramban say it happened all the time. Rashi literally all the time. The Ramban all the time, but not literally, not every single day, but throughout the 40 years. And according to the Abarbanel and the Marsha, it was in the beginning one time, either for a day or 20 days, and then again it continued afterwards for that 1 month, and then it was all over. And then we have a new pshat, the pshat of the Meir Ayin Huva the Torah Shloima. He says, Klal Uprat. He said it only happened once. Only in this week's Parsha. What do you mean? We have Parsha B'Shalach. Says the Meir Ayin, he brings a whole arichas over there, but basically he says, we have in the Torah, we have the Chazal talk about the Chet HaEgel, and Chazal's call, they refer to certain psukim as Egel Rishon, and certain psukim as Egel Sheni. Now we know that the Yidden only had one Chet HaEgel in the Midbar. So what does it mean, Egel Rishon and Egel Sheni? So the Mefarshim over there, Pshat in the Gemara is that it's written in the Torah 2 times. So it's Rishon and Sheni, but it's not actually 2 times. It was the first time it's mentioned, and the second time it's mentioned. So the Meir Ayin says, and based on the Mechilta, it says also in the Gemara, Slav Rishon and Slav Sheni. You have the same lotion. So he says, Slav Rishon means the first time it's mentioned, Slav Sheni the second time it's mentioned. So he says that what happens is the first time Parshas B'Shalach, they didn't complain. And even though the Pasuk says that Hashem tells the Yidden you're going to have the Slav in the evening, he didn't mean this evening. He meant when the Slav is going to come, it's going to come in the evening. So it's a very big chiddush, because in the Pshudah Shel Mikra, when you learn Parshas B'Shalach, it's not talking about what's going to happen in a year from now. It's talking about what's happening right now. But again, if you're not mugbal to the Derech Halimud of Pshudah Shel Mikra, you can say that the pasuk is describing what's going to happen eventually. That when they're going to get the Slav, they're going to get in the evening, and that's going to end up happening a year later. And then a year later, Parshas Ba'aloischa, what we're up to now. So indeed over here, it goes through the whole arichas exactly how it happened with all the pratim. So according to him, it's a whole new pshat. It was a one-time thing that happened for a month. It was never before or never after. And these are 5 different pirushim, which if you break it up, it's really 3 pirushim. Like I said, Rashi and the Ramban, and the Barbanel and the Marsha, and then this pirush brought down on the Mechilta of how it happened. So this answers our questions about what happened, and of course, according to the different answers, it's understood why they asked again. According to Rashi, they asked again because they wanted more. According to the Ramban, they didn't have it at that time. According to the Marsha and the Barbanel, they for sure didn't have it for a very long time. And according to the Torah Shleima, the Meir Ayin, of course, they didn't have it at all. So it makes sense why they complained the first time. And then, according to him, it makes even more sense why they complained, because they complained the first time, well, right this 12 year, and they only got the money. Now a year later, they're saying it's already a year that we're waiting for the flesh. So it's even more understood why there's a big complaint afterwards. Next, the conversation is regarding the pratim about the slav. Pratim about the slav, meaning descriptions of what the slav is like. So there's the Gemara in Yuma. The Gemara in Yuma says, Amar Rabbi Chanan Barava, Daled mine slavhein. He says there are 4 types of quail. Ve'elu hein, these are the 4 types. Shichli, V'kibli, Upasyuni, V'slav. These are the 4 subspecies. Malya the Kulu, Shichli, the best of the 4 species is called Shichli. Griya the Kulu, Slav, the worst of them is Slav. I do not know, I don't remember if he means to say that they got the worst one, or he's just saying that they're all included Slav, but if you break it up into subspecies, so the Shichli is a better one, and the Slav is a worse one, I don't remember, but he's just telling us that there are 4 subspecies in quail. And then, no, because it's a general term. It's like you have like a general term for a species, like cows, and then you have an individual. You have a Jersey, you have a whatever they call over there, a Holstein, whatever, all the different species.
So why should it be called the best type?
No, I'm saying it could be that he agrees that they got the best type. But once you break it up into details, he just tells you that there are 4 names, and the name Slav, an individual species, applies only to the last one.
Yeah, but I'm saying the 4 species, shouldn't like all the species be called like the best type of species?
In general, they're all good, but specifically, there might have been the one that's the best.
Yeah, why don't they call everything by the name that's the best one?
I'm not understanding your question.
What was the name of the best type of stuff?
What was it before? Shichli.
Why do they call everything Shichli?
Shichli is a name in Aramaic. Slav is a general name, and then you have different types. I'll give you an example. Maybe it's not a good example.
Why is the general name the worst name of the 4 species?
I hear your question, but let me give you maybe an example. It's just chicken, right? Now, when you're having chicken, you can call it a polka, you can call it a fertel, you can call it schnitzel. When people are having schnitzel, they don't usually say I'm having chicken, right? But schnitzel is chicken most of the time. So when I'm making chicken, I can make it in schnitzel, and I can make it into a polka, let's say. So the term chicken, when are you going to say I'm having chicken? When you're having a polka, you say, I'm having chicken tonight. When I'm having schnitzel, I'll say I have a schnitzel. So, of course, it's a bad example. My concept is that I'm trying to figure out there's different names. And also, I'm not sure if these names existed earlier or later. I'm not sure. Maybe the name happened only later. Point is that he says there are 4 types. And then he says, it's like a bird. You put it into the oven, it ends up blowing up in the oven and fills up the entire oven, meaning it expands from the juice that's there and ends up filling up the entire oven. And then he says, the Gemara says, they put it on top of 13 loaves of bread, and says the Gemara, it's so juicy, this chicken, not this chicken, this quail, that it ends up giving out so much juice and fat and schmaltz that you put it on top of 13 loaves of bread. The top 12 loaves are so eingesabt. soaked through with the grease and the schmaltz of the quail that it's not edible b'chlal. It's way too greasy, too schmaltzig. The last one on the bottom over there, it also gets very much affected, but it's still possible to eat it if you mix it with something else. Now sometimes you have something which is like too sweet. Let's say you can't drink it as is. So this is how much fats, how juicy, so to speak, is the quail. This is how the Gemara is describing it. I'm pretty sure the Gemara is talking about the best quality one. That's how juicy this quail bird is. Another Gemara which talks about this, about the quail, mentioning it in passing, the Gemara says, Tani Avima Bereid Rabbi Abo, Avima Bereid Rabbi Abo said, Yesh machil la'aviv pisyoni v'toyr de b'noilim. There can be a person that serves his father pisyoni, and yet, even though he's serving his father, toyr de min ha'olam, he's going to be, he's losing, he's going to get punished for it. So Rashi explains, Pisyeni means oiv chashuv v'shamin, an important bird, a fat bird, means slav sheyarad b'midbar. It's a type of slav that came down in the midbar. And so he's feeding his father's slav, and yet v'tordim b'noilam. Why? Shenena shalav shemar leitzorus ein al sudas. So here the Gemara is telling that even though a person serves his father geshmaka food, but if he makes his father feel uncomfortable, the Gemara has the details of the story, where we'll see in a moment more, that basically even though he served his father geshmaka food, but he made his father feel guilty about it and uncomfortable about it, so even though B'Peil Mamish is giving his father good stuff, since he's making his father uncomfortable, he loses the reward for that. Now this is the way the Gemara says, Bayas Pisyoini, and it says, what is it? Rashi tells us, it's the slav which came down to the midbar. Now it's interesting, Tosfos brings from the Yerushalmi, and Tosfos brings the same Gemara that we just mentioned from the Yerushalmi, and over there it says, Keitzad machil asaviv patumis v'yerish gehenim. What kind of case can it be if someone that's feeding his father geshmaka food, and nevertheless he gets gehenim? There was a person that was serving his father geshmaka chicken, and Chazman Amar Liavi, one time his father asked him, Bri, Ilin Minalach, where do you get all this geshmaka chicken from? Amar Le, and the son told his father, Saba, you old man, Nachil Badish, the Kalbi Nachlim Bachin. Eat and shut up. Like the dogs eat and shut up, don't tell me, don't talk to me. So even though he gave his father geshmaka food, but such a chutzpah to his father, so the reason why I bring this Tosfos is to point out that maybe you can say that according to Tosfos, the slav was maybe a type of chicken. And the reason why I want to say that is because, as far as we know today, quail is people do eat quail, and it's officially kosher also. I mean, not officially, it's 100% kosher, but there's a question of do we have a Messiah or not. The Pashas, we do have a Messiah, but the quail, it's known that from all the poultry out there, chicken is the most common eaten poultry, and because it's the most tasty, it's the most juicy compared to all the other ones. It's not as what the Gemara said, but quail is for sure less than that. So either we can say that was a different type of quail, or we can say the quail in the past was more juicy, or maybe we can say that according to Tosfos, chicken is a type of quail, which, again, it's a very big kiddush. I'm just suggesting such a pshat that maybe at least a certain species of chicken, whatever it may be. So that's regarding the prat. We want to, the topic number 3 is the punishment that happened through this, what?
From all the, like, what we learned over here, it said juicy, it's also like, it flew to the...
It doesn't say it flew. It says that the wind blew it there. If it flew, then it can't be chicken, because we know chickens can't fly. But if the wind blew it there, then it could have flown. It could have gone.
It came out of the water.
We're going to get to that soon. Min hayom...
Maybe it could be like a duck or something.
We're going to get... So we'll talk about that at the end. But in short, basically, there are mefarshim that say that maybe it's a type of duck. But that's not the mainstream mefarshim. The pashas is the... What? Quails fly, yeah, definitely, yeah. Quails fly, yeah. This is the bird of a quail. Okay,
Will it also be like naturally like in the water?
No, we'll talk about that soon. That detail, we'll get to that soon. It's going to in this section right now. So what was the punishment that happened to the Yidden as a result? So we saw the passage before of Vayeh lachem lezara. So how does that work? So the Sforno says, Shetoichlu mimenu at sheyoilid b'hem moisar machli. You're going to eat it till it'll cause extra stuff in you and it'll make you sick. So anything that you eat too much of, as we know, whatever you eat too much of is always unhealthy. So the Sforno suggests if you eat too much of it, it'll partially make you sick because of too much that you're eating. Similarly, As Rashi says, at Chodesh Yomim, Rashi has there's differences of opinions. Rashi brings two opinions in the Sifri and the Mechilta. Rashi says that the Kshedim, they were mismatzing on Mitosei, and it took them a month till they died. But the Rishoim, the moment they bite into it, they died immediately. The Mechilta says the opposite. The Rishoim suffered for a full month, and the Kshedim died right away. Rashi doesn't say what was the explanation of how they died. Ma'akesher. Quail, people eat all the time, no one dies from quail. What happened over here? So according to this Svarna, they ate too much, and that caused them to give Yachal some kind of illness. But according to Rashi, Rashi doesn't say, they just says that they died either immediately or a month later. So a suggested pshat that's brought down, which just will answer the Vayoga Salvin. There's an illness called Kutornism. Kutornism features muscle tenderness and rhabdomyolysis, which means muscle cell breakdown. And that happens after consuming quail that have fed on poisonous plants. Hastus, that if a quail eats certain poisonous plants, for the quail itself it's not so bad. But when people eat this quail, they end up getting this illness, which is called muscle tenderness, and like any other illness, if it's done too strong, chas v'shalom, the person can die from it. So here we see something natural in the world of science, that the quail bird actually causes a certain illness. When does it cause that? People eat quail all the time. So the answer is, the common quail turns poisonous only during the migration season. As we know, Hashem created one of the most fascinating things in nature is the concept of migration. Migration means animals start their lives in one location and they walk or fly or swim to another location which can be hundreds of miles away, and then they end up going back to their first location to give birth to the next generation, and so on and so forth, as everybody knows. Quail has also a pattern of migration. The pattern of migration of the quail goes through the midbar, over where the Yidden were in the desert. Part of their traveling, according to some, is their migration goes, like many of the birds, over water. And as it's known today, that when they're traveling specifically, that's when they eat the poisonous plants, meaning in their regular locations where they end up, over there these poisonous plants don't exist. Over there isn't a concern of eating quail. But as they're migrating, as they're flying, that's when they stop off to eat the plants which are poisonous. Based on the list, we can say a very nice pshat. It says, Vayogo salvi min hayom. Now that's simple. We can learn Tataish min hayom either came out of the water, it was miraculously appeared from the water, or we can say a pshat maybe that as it was flying over the water, migrating wherever it was migrating, Hashem blew the birds off course, which happens all the time. Not in huge amounts, but definitely in smaller amounts. There's always birds that get lost on the way, and when they got, it blew them towards the Yidden. And now, according to this, all the mass migration landed exactly where the Yidden were in the Midbar, and the birds were already naturally, they had just eaten all these poisonous plants, and the Yidden took so much of this love, and therefore they ended up dying, because as we said, it has this cortinism, which is a natural way of explaining of how they died. So that's a very nice scientific explanation, which I don't see a problem with saying that pshat. Whenever we use science for Torah, we have to be careful that we don't want to chas v'shalom challenge Torah. If it's a pshat that fits beautifully with science, there's no problem in accepting it. But this is according to that pshat, that it happened only at this time, and they died at this time, which I think it's a very nice pshat that can easily fit. Of course, there's obviously a tremendous element of miracle over here, aside the fact that they was blown off course, and they all ended up exactly at the midbar, and they died exactly within a month, and all those details. Obviously, it's a miracle, but there's some kind of element of teva, which we don't have to use if we don't want to, but if we do want to, the chayr would make sense. And this is a pshat of Vayoga salvi min hayom. This would answer those words that people keep asking, what does it mean min hayom? We can say they were flying over the sea, and Hashem blew it off course to get to where the Yidden were. Now, if you say this pshat, everything fits. If you don't say this pshat, you can also say that the slav was in that area flying, and Hashem blew them from the sea, just like we have by the Arba. It also says that it was a wind that came from Yamsuf and blew the Arba to Mitzrayim from Makas Arba. So you can say that the wind came from that area, and there was a whole bunch of quail there. Anyway, you can say that pshat also, and you don't have to say the pshat they were migrating, and they were eat the poisonous food. You don't have to say it if you don't want to. It doesn't say that in Chazal and the Mefarshim, but it's a suggested pshat. Of course, according to this pshat that they're flying, obviously we're not talking about the chickens, because chickens do not have this illness, Baruch Hashem. That's why we can eat chickens, Baruch Hashem, and be healthy and well. They don't have this cortinism. So that if it was chicken, if that pshat that I said before in Tosfos is true, then it was obviously something miraculous, or what this furnace said that they just ate too much, and that's where they died.
So what about the opinion that says they only got like certain amount, like certain times when the evening traveled.
So then, according to everybody, the death story only happened one time. Only in this week's parasha, Chav Gimel Iyar, for that 1 month.
But that was only 1 year.
It was 1 year for that month. According to the Mefarshim, that it happened throughout the 40 years, and it either happened the first time, they agreed that he didn't die all the time. They weren't dying all the time.
Also, if that's the case, like, how is it that the Yidden complain and then right after they get the sub? If we're going, how do you chop it with science?
If it's beautiful, they complained at that time when they were migrating anyway, and everything worked out.
What about every other year?
So that's I wanted to add before. According to the Ramban, it happened randomly. According to the Ramban, we can explain it happened randomly because they were randomly flying, and randomly they ended up in that area. Why wasn't it fatal the other years? So we can say that the cortinism is not fatal if it's a small amount. It's only if it's large amounts. So regularly, only a few birds will fly, of course, and not a short amount of time. So even though it might cause a little bit of illness, it won't be such a big deal. Versus this one time, a tremendous amount came, and that's where they all ended up dying.
Specifically ate a lot.
Yeah, this time it clearly says so. The minimal guy took 10 piles. What do you think now? According to Rashi, it was every day. So according to Rashi, the Pashas was miraculous. For the quail to appear every single day, for all the Yidden to have enough quail, so according to Rashi, we don't have the cortinism pshat. Again, this is only. I think this pshat only fits with those that it happened one time, and that, or at least just one time at the beginning, one time at the end. That's it. And again, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, how did they find this out? Because there were sailors that the quail land on their boats when they're sailing, and they eat them, and they find out that sometimes they end up getting sick because of it. But it seems like for the most part, it's not fatal. But it's understood. There's like anything else. If it's too much of it, it can be fatal. So that could be the pshat over here. So all the years, maybe it wasn't quite fatal at all, and here it was fatal. All right. Subject number 4, the Slav according to Chassidus. So there's a Maimon look with the Torah. The Alter Rebbe asks a question. On the one hand, it says in Chazal, "Am ha'aretz asur lechel basar." A person that's not a Talmud Chacham cannot eat flesh. Why? Because he cannot elevate the flesh. Implying that a person that's not a Talmud Chacham, not an Amoritz, a person that is a Talmud Chacham, he's allowed to eat flesh. Why can he eat flesh? Because he's elevating the food. And that's because the person is above the food. So that's one thing. Amoritz cannot eat flesh because he can't elevate it. The Talmud Chacham could eat flesh because he could elevate it. However, asks Alter Rebbe, look at the Torah, it says in Gemara Brachos that the Elon that Adam Rishon ate from was chita, and we said, which means that the chita gave him das, elevated the person. Similarly, we say that a child cannot call father or mother till he eats dagan. From this we see that the person gets from the food elevates the person. And Rav Nachman also said, until I ate flesh, I wasn't able to understand. So l'chayra, the Alter Rebbe is asking, what picks up what? On one hand we say the flesh elevates the person, on the other hand we say the person elevates the flesh.
What does that mean what you just said?
Elevating, everything has some kind of energy.
The words that you said before. You said he ate from the
Dagan?
I don't know what you said.
Chita?
You said Adam ate from this and then baby
Adam ate
this, like, I don't know.
Okay, I'll say again. Adam ate from the Eitz Hadas. According to some, it was wheat. And it was not, according to no one, it was out, by the way, so that's a famous mistake. No one ever says it's an apple tree. For some reason, it comes from the movies or something. I don't know. Christians. Yeah. So he ate from the wheat. And it says the wheat, because he ate from the wheat, he ended up getting more knowledge. So we see that the food empowered him. What? There's a discussion that according to that opinion, there's a chiddush that even a stalk of grain can also be called eitz. It's like a chiddush. And then, and a child can only when he eats grains can he start calling tati and mami, because there's a certain element of intelligence which only comes after eating grains.
This is not true, right?
This is true. Why do you think it's not true?
Because let's say somebody never eats grains, they won't be able to call it.
There's other ways of developing your seichel as well. But a child that eats grains, that develops his mind. That's if you go to the next time, go to Walmart, go to the baby section, you're going to see over there how much of baby containers, and it's going to say baby food containers, not baby containers. And the baby food containers, you'll see that this boosts brain, this boosts that. They also scientists also understand that different foods boost different parts of the person. So definitely like that. So Alter Rebbe answers. So what elevates what? He says shnei emes. That on the one hand, the animals or the flesh is lower than the person, on the other hand it's higher than the person. And he gives a whole example of Chayas HaKodesh, the Malachim, that on the one hand they elevate the one riding upon them, on the other hand they get elevated through it. So basically, if I'm helping you, you can be helping me. It's not like it doesn't have to be one or the other. I can help you and you can help me. The Behema helps the Adam helps the Behema, and they both contribute, each one contributes something else to the table. That's where the person can elevate the flesh and make the flesh go to a higher source, and the flesh can elevate the person and bring the person to a more advanced Kayches HaNefesh. Now the Rebbe then continues and he says, Basar, flesh, comes from Gevuros. That's why it's red. Flesh is naturally red. And that's why, because it's red comes from Gevura, and that's why even when you elevate the flesh, when a person elevates the flesh, since it's Gevuros, it gets included in Gevuros to Kedusha. And the strong, so to speak, aspects of Kedusha, and which means that it's through the flesh, through the Gevuros, the person has excitement, a passion, a fiery passion towards Hashem. And the reason is because the source of all the animals is from Aryeh v'Shoir shebemerkava, which is the lion and the ox that are in the Merkava, in Hashem's holy chariot. Well, and the bottom one is not the lion in the Merkava. You know that?
No, it's a lion.
Oh, it's a lion. Okay.
I didn't even realize that was a lion. That was the body of the ram. So just a fiery body.
No, Chavre, this is a share I learned to use from last time. I didn't do the AI. If I would have used AI, I would have had some really cool pictures. But maybe next time we'll redo it again. All right. So the flesh is red because it's connected to Gevuros. Based on that, Alter Rebbe continues and he says, Moshe Rabbeinu, in that argument with Hashem, he tells the Eibishter, the 600,000 people of Esharnoichi Bekirbai, and he's telling the Eibishter that I'm the level of Ayin. And Moshe is telling the Eidin Seif, the Eibishter, he says, because I'm on the level of Ayin, so B'meile, it's impossible that on the level of Ayin, which is the level of Chachma, I should lower myself down all the way to bring flesh to the people. And that's where Moshe Rabbeinu's comment. We said before, Moshe was so frustrated, so to speak, about the situation. What was bothering him so much? According to Pshat, he was annoyed because whenever people complain to you, you got annoyed. According to Chassidus, the Rebbe is explaining, no, he wasn't annoyed because people were complaining. He was saying, Hashem, they want me to go lower myself down to so low. It's impossible. The level that I'm at, which is the Ayin of Chachmah, I cannot lower it down to such a low place, to the level of Gvuros, to bring the flesh all the way down over there. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu was concerned about. And for that, Hashem told him, don't worry. Even though, Taka, you're too high for this, nevertheless, I can do anything. I'm the Eibishter. And therefore, I can bring down from the Ayin of Chachmah to bring it down all the way lamata, into the Gvuros, into the Yesh of the Basar, that even in this lowly place of Basar, the Bittul of Chachmah will be revealed, because Yad Hashem can be nimshach all the way lamata. And then the Alter Rebbe continues, that's the word of the Slav. And we said before, they were very, very fat, they were very juicy, as we said earlier. So he says, because shemen, oil, which is any kind of fatty thing, is also considered oily, is a level of chachma. Chakim level chachma yediyah. And Ilmaza Agashmi also, it says that shemen comes from chachma. And that's why Hashem chose to bring from all the flesh, from the unwanted flesh, Hashem said, I'm going to bring dafke slav. Meaning, I'm going to mean that the chachma, the oil, should be nimshach all the way into the basar, even though the basar is from gvuros, the shemen from chachma go all the way down. And that is why, that's the message of the story of the Slav. The message of the Slav is that we can bring the bittul down even to the yesh of basar, even all the way to the lowest place. It's still possible to bring the bittul of tasha. And this is what I wanted to share, which that is a Pirush that says that the Slav was a fish because it came from the water. But like I said, it's not the mainstream of Farshim, not something which meaning you shouldn't ever say it. If someone says it to you, say, yeah, I heard that pshat once, but it's not true. V'zeh